I never imagined a simple compliance check could lead to an unbelievable corporate downfall. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with anticipation, my heart pounding like a frantic drum in my chest. It was just a routine audit, a few unassuming faces moving through the sterile halls, and yet, something felt off. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting erratic shadows that danced menacingly against the stark white walls. As I walked in, the tension was palpable. My colleague Sarah sat across the table, her forehead slick with sweat, fingers trembling over her notepad. I glanced at her, and we shared a look, one that spoke volumes of the fear welling up inside us both. The walls felt as if they were closing in, every breath was a struggle, every heartbeat a countdown. We knew things weren't right. Whispers had been circulating for weeks, murmurs of shady deals hidden beneath layers of corporate glamour. The lead auditor, a steely woman with piercing eyes, began to sift through reports. Each sheet of paper felt like an unturned stone, hiding secrets we were too scared to uncover. My mind raced back to late nights I spent poring over numbers, missing something critical, a piece of the puzzle that could save us from the storm brewing on the horizon. My stomach twisted as I thought of the whole teamy friends, my familiar jeopardy. My phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up with an anonymous message, "Stay out of it, or you'll regret it." A shiver ran down my spine. I could feel my palms growing clammy. I glanced at Sarah, but she was too focused on the auditor's stern voice to notice my growing panic. Suddenly, the air crackled with electricity when the auditor slammed the document down. It was a report on discrepancies, massive financial errors linked to the upper echelon, time blurred into an overwhelming sense of dread. I could see the disbelief etched on Sarah's face, others gasped murmurs of shock. "This is a disaster," someone whispered, eyes wide, breaths quickening. I could barely breathe myself, as realization struck. Who in our company was involved? My mind raced, loyalties were fracturing, and fear was swallowing us whole. Then, a terrifying thought crept in. What if this was no mere compliance check? What if it was a trap, a distraction from something darker lurking in the backgrounds of our organization? The walls seemed to pulse as my pulse quickened, and every second felt like a ticking time bomb. And just when I thought the chaos couldn't mount higher, the door swung open, revealing a figure shrouded in mysteria, tall silhouette, pouring in a wave of ominous energy. I felt my heart plummet. This wasn't just an ordinary audit anymore. My world shattered as the undeniable realization sunk in. All our lives were about to change, but would we be able to uncover the truth before it consumed us whole? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tension in the room intensified as the shadowy figure stepped forward, breaking the agonizing silence like a crack of thunder. My heartbeat thudded in my ears, drowning out the muffled gasps around me. The auditor's eyes sparked with a newfound intensity as she shifted her attention to this newcomer, a man clad in a tailored suit that radiated authority but also disconcerting menace. "Who are you?" she demanded, attempting to regain control of the proceedings. The question hung in the air, but the figure merely offered a smirk, a small, cruel twist of his lips. "Let's just say I'm here to clear up some misunderstandings," he replied smoothly, his voice a silken thread laced with hidden threats. I could feel a chill creeping through me, snaking its way into my bones. Was he an ally or an adversary? As he leaned against the doorframe, casual yet imposing, a whisper began to weave through the room, igniting a spark of anxious murmurs. My fingers gripped the edge of the conference table, grounding myself against the rising tide of uncertainty. But just as quickly as questions surged in my mind, I felt an unexpected warmth from Sarah's hand squeezing mine. It was a small gesturia sliver of comfort, but in that moment, it felt monumental. "We won't be intimidated," she declared, her voice shaking but resolute. "You have no power here. A collective intake of breath resonated through the room as her words hung heavily in the air, a pledge of defiance against the dark tide looming over us. The man chuckled, the sound low and almost mocking. Power? Oh, I assure you, I hold all the cards. His eyes slid dismissively across our concerned faces, drinking in our fear and uncertainty. But I will offer you a choice. Join me, and perhaps you can salvage what's left of your precious company. That a dragon's breath of uncertainty flared in my gut. Did he plan on drawing us into whatever abyss he resided in? All the shadows, all the whispers we had feared began to warp our reality. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, but at the same time, the weight of our potential downfall loomed heavily in my thoughts. The auditor stiffened, her composure faltering for the faintest moment. Get out, she commanded, her voice firm yet trembling beneath the surface. Your threats mean nothing to us. But deep down, I saw her falter, the wariness creeping into her stance. Fear had a way of stripping away bravado. What if I told you, he replied, cutting through her words like a knife, that there's something much larger at play? Something that goes beyond your compliance check. The entire room buzzed with a sense of impending doom, but there was something else, curiosity. What if I could expose those at the very top? Or better yet, let you see how deep the rot runs? Outside the conference room, distant chatter echoed from the bustling office. I felt trapped within a bubble of uncertainty. My gaze darted to Sarah, who wore a conflicted expression, wrestling with the gravity of the proposition. I could see the gears turning in her mind, loyalty battling the very real possibility of saving our jobs, our lives. Just then, my phone buzzed again, wrenching my attention back. The screen illuminated a new message, this time not anonymous but from my supervisor. Meet me at the usual spot. We need to talk. Urgent. It's about the audit. My stomach twisted in knots. What could they possibly tell me that would be any better than this confrontation? I shared a glance with Sarah. The unspoken conversation flowed like an undercurrent between us. Decisions loomed heavy. As the man continued his monologue about secrets and betrayals, a small flicker of hope ignited within me. There were whispers of an insider, someone who might know more than what was visible on the surface. The fragile hope that perhaps there were still allies left amid the wreckage surged in my chest, dynamic and unwieldy. Think carefully, he said, his voice drawing me back into the fray. Choose wisely with me, there's safety. Without me, you plunge into that chaos blindfolded. 1,000 thoughts swirled through my mind, each battling for prominence. Yet one question lodged itself firmly in my heart: who could we trust? And before I could utter a word, the lights above flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness, and a horrifying realization dawned upon me: our time was running out. The darkness enveloped us like a thick shroud, a suffocating blanket that pressed against our skin and stole the breath from our lungs. The only sounds were the frantic murmurs of my colleagues, stifled by the encroaching fear. I clutched Sarah's hand tighter, feeling her pulse quicken, a rapid echo to my own rising anxiety. Stay calm, the auditor's voice cut through the chaos, though it wavered, a betrayal of her confidence. Remember your training. Stay together. But the words did little to quell the rising panic that thrummed through the room. Just as I began to adjust to the dimness, a sudden blinding flash illuminated the space, a crack of lightning at the cusp of a storm. The shadowy figure was still there, albeit now more intimidating, his features momentarily highlighted by the brief flare of light. Darkness, how fitting, he said, his voice smooth and mocking. Embrace it, it holds all the secrets. Then shadows crept back over us, and his laughter lingered, a sinister echo that carved itself into the corners of my mind. In that suffocating darkness, every insecurity, every doubt clawed at the edges of my sanity. Were we truly sailing into chaos, stranded on the precipice of what was once our safe harbor? Just as I felt my grip on hope start to slip away, a soft, urgent whisper broke through the shadows, oddly soothing amidst the tumult. Look, it said, and I turned my head towards the small sliver of illuminated screen glinting from one of the conference room's side tables. Sarah's phone was aglow, casting a gentle light over her worried face. She had received a message, and I leaned in, all but forgetting the looming figure who surrounded us with an air of predation. Someone must have known, she gasped, barely above a whisper. It's from Ryan. He says, he knows who's behind the audit. He needs our help. My heart raced at the mention of Ryan. He was a colleague stationed deep within the finance department, one who had always been a quiet observer, silently compiling information that few noticed, the kinds of details that might slip between the cracks of compliance checks. That he thinks they're planning something big, Sarah continued, her gaze fixed on the screen, fervently scrolling through the message. He says it's not just about the audit. There's a network, people we didn't even imagine were involved. A flicker of alarm shot through me. How deep did this rabbit hole go? My heart thudded at the implications. Was this man in the room merely the tip of an iceberg threatening to sink us all? Questions spiraled as the sense of dread wrapped tighter around me. Join me, the shadowy figure crooned, his voice slinking into the darkness once more. I can protect you. Why would you risk everything on the words of a lowly accountant? Because, I finally found my voice, a surge of defiance bubbling up inside me. He's telling the truth about what's coming. We can't trust you, you're just feeding us lies. The smirk on his face faded as his eyes narrowed with malice. For a brief moment, I glimpsed something more dangerous than just threats. There was a flicker of rage ignited by my resistance. It sent a shiver down my spine and reminded me just how precarious our position was, but despair and hopelessness had begun to soften in me, replaced with a stirring resolve. Whatever danger lay ahead, I couldn't go down without the truth being laid bare. I wasn't about to let fear dictate my choices. The lights flickered back to life, revealing frantic faces turned toward the man who now stood seething, his composure slipping like sand through an hourglass. A resolve flickered in the room, an understanding that we weren't alone. Even as the pressure rose, enough of this charade, he snarled, his eyes darting between each of us, searching for weakness. You have no idea what you're tampering with. Those in charge will not forgive betrayal. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, followed by hurried footsteps, a commotion that reverberated around us, signaling that we were no longer the center of attention. It was all too unnerving, the tension sizzling as the walls closed. And run, Sarah whispered urgently, her grip on my hand tightening once more, urging me toward the faint outline of the door. We need to warn Ryan. We can't let them silence us. But just as we turned to flee, the door swung open to reveal a figure I never expected. It was Clara, the CEO, face pale yet determined, her eyes darting between us and the figure lurking in the room. What have you done? She demanded, her voice sharp as glass, fear etched on her features. Panic surged within me. Clara walked a fine line between authority and vulnerability, and I could see no semblance of the proud leader we once idolized. But in the haze of our uncertainty, there lingered something vital, a spark of resistance that urged us all to stand together. Clara, we need you, I called out, the weight of our plight suddenly crystal clear. But the widening of her eyes shockingly masked a breaking truth that echoed louder than any words. I never imagined this would lead to such devastation, she managed, trembling. And before I could grasp the meaning, I watched as her expression crumbled. The realization struck me, thin a chasm that severed my trust and fidelity, shattered my resolve. Clara knew something we didn't, and as I stared into her haunted gaze, I felt the ground shift beneath us all. The air in the room felt electric, charged with the weight of secrets shared and unshared. Clara's revelation hung between us like a guillotine, perilously poised to drop. I searched her face for answers, but all I found were the shadows of choices she regretted. Clara, what do you mean? My voice broke through the tension, urgency lacing every word. What's happening? She inhaled shakily, her gaze darting to the shadowy figure behind her. Fear and betrayal danced in her eyes, but beneath that turmoil was a glimmer of resolve, something she had clearly wrestled with for too long. I thought this could all be managed, she finally said, voice tremorous. But I was wrong. They're bigger than I ever imagined, richer, more powerful. The compliance issues were never about the numbers, it was always about control. The enormity of her admission threatened to crush me, swirling in my mind like a hurricane. Who were they she mentioned? What had she known, and for how long? My heart sank deeper as I considered my own ignorance, the years I had spent believing we were safe and secure in our little corporate bubble. Run, Clara ordered, her voice hardened with resolve. This isn't just about your careers. They'll come for you, and they won't care who gets hurt in the fallout. Who won't care? Sarah interjected, her face pale but her eyes fiery with defiance. Clara, we have to know. This isn't just a matter of saving ourselves. We need to expose whatever darkness has festered in our organization. Let her speak. The shadowy figure snapped, his voice an icy reprimand that sent a shiver through the room. Your actions could lead to devastating repercussions. You think you can play with the big players and walk away unscathed? You'll be crushed beneath their weight, something deep inside me flared. I clutched Sarah's hand, the warmth of our intertwined fingers a catalyst for the resolve brewing in my chest. We were cornered, yes, but the thought of lingering in despair and waiting for the inevitable to occur was far worse than the unknown that loomed before us. Tell us everything, I urged Clara, locking eyes with her. We can protect each other. I refuse to let them silence us without a fight. Clara glanced once more at the threatening figure, the weight of our collective fear evident in her eyes. Then, with a resigned breath, she began to speak. I thought my role as CEO would keep us safe, but I was entangled in something far deeper. The audits were a cove-ran investigation into a web of corruption that goes back years. Those people they're involved in illegal deals. Money laundering, embezzlement, you name it. The shocking revelations were like stones dropping in the silence, each creating a ripple of dread and fury that threatened to engulf us. Where does Ryan fit into this? I pressed, urgency sharpening my voice. Ryan. He has evidence, Clara replied, glancing nervously at the figure behind her, whose smirk had turned into a mask of calculation. He's been gathering intel, but he's also in danger if we don't move soon. They will take him out. Just then, the shadowy figure stepped closer, his presence suffocating us. You're meddling in matters beyond your understanding, he warned, his voice a honeyed poison. Have you ever stopped to think what will happen if you persist? But his threat was drowned out by a sudden commotion behind him, the sound of footsteps barreling down the hallway, a flurry of voices merging into a cacophony of chaos. My heart raced. It was as if a storm had erupted, escalating the urgency that pulsed through my veins. Clara, we have to leave. Now. Sarah shouted, her grip on my arm involuntarily tightening as if she could hold our tattered resolution together. Go. Clara snapped. I'll buy you time. Just stay together and find Ryan. He's your only way out. Holds the key. No. No, we can't leave you. I cried out, panic enveloping me like the darkness that shrouded us moments before. Then Clara's gaze hardened, a mix of fear and determination. You must. Trust me. I'll handle this. Just make sure Ryan knows I'm still with you in spirit. The intensity of her plea burned into me, forcing me to choose between the protection of our shared history and the precarious future that awaited us. A fractured heart often beats more fiercely, as if to compensate for the pieces that splintered away. With one final look, I tore myself from her grasp, dragging Sarah with me as we bolted toward the door. The intensity of the shouts and the chaos escalated behind us. Just as we were intent to make the escape our only refuge, a chilling scream pierced the air, a sound that seemed to slice through every shred of doubt. That I turned back one last time, desperate to catch a glimpse of Clara, of the strength that had held our fragile group together even in the face of insurmountable odds. But the door slammed shut behind us, drowning us in an abyss of uncertainty, and there I stood, breathless, the hall stretching infinitely before us as a realization hit me hard. Clara had made a choice, one that could cost us everything. Ryan. I shouted into the tumult, my heart racing as the hallway echoed with uncertainty, fear clawing at my insides. We need to find him before it's too late. But in the swirl of chaos, something deep within me stirred a dread realization gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. What if Clara's sacrifice was futile? What if we had just stepped into a trap of our own making, unwittingly leading ourselves to a fate far worse than we had ever imagined? And as doubt gnawed at my resolve, the sound of footsteps resumed behind me, and I felt an icy chill creep along my spine. We would have to face whatever darkness awaited us together, but could we withstand what they had in store? Panic skittered through my mind as I wondered what price we were truly willing to pay for the truth. Tension pulsated through the air as Sarah and I tore down the corridor, the frantic rhythm of our footsteps beating a frantic tattoo against the industrial floor. The buzz of voices behind us morphed into whispers of uncertainty, and the oppressive weight of dread clung to my skin. I felt the pull of the shadows behind me, the remnants of Clara's courage urging me forward even as my heart screamed to turn back. Where do we go? Sarah panted, breathless, her face a mixture of resolve and fear. Anywhere but here, I replied, scanning the hallway for an exit. My mind, a tempest of emotions, replayed Clara's last words, the weight of her trust resting heavily on my shoulders. We have to find Ryan. Clara said he's our only way out. Do you think he knows what's happening? Sarah inquired, her brow creased in thought, mirroring my worries. That I hope so. But we need to hurry. The urgency in my voice was palpable, each word a reminder that time was slipping through our fingers like grains of sand. We reached a crossroad in the hall. 2 doors loomed before us, one marked Human Resources and the other Executive Offices. I hesitated, taking a deep breath as I weighed our options. Both paths felt weighed down by potential danger, hidden secrets lurking behind every corner. Let's check the Executive Offices, I decided, pulling open the door with a thrust. The smell of leather and polished wood enveloped us like a cocoon. Lights flickered ominously overhead, casting unsettling shadows that danced around us. Ryan? I called out, my voice trembling as I stepped inside. Are you here? Silence met my plea, but just as I thought despair might claim me, Sarah's eyes darted toward a dim corner of the room. Look! She whispered, pointing. In the shadows behind an ornate desk, I caught a glimpse of a figure hesitant to emerge, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. It's me, Ryan, he exclaimed, stepping forward. Relief surged within me as I recognized the familiar features of my dear friend. Thank God we found you, I filled in his space without hesitation, rushing toward him. We need your help. Clara, she's in trouble, that I know, he replied, the pallor of his face indicating the weight of the burdens he bore. 2 overheard them talking in the break room. They're coming for you. What do you mean? Sarah interjected, the urgency in her voice sharpening. They've set up a trap. If you stay here, you'll be cornered in a matter of minutes, Ryan explained, his eyes flickering with panic. I can help you escape, but we need to move quickly. I glanced back at the dark hallway behind us. We'd come so close, only to stumble upon another set of suffocating choices. My heart wavered between longing for Clara and the need to save ourselves. With each passing second, the tension thickened, tangling my thoughts in an evasive web. Where are we supposed to go? I finally asked, desperation threading through my words. Ryan hesitated briefly, then his face grew resolute. There's a stairwell at the back of the building. If we can make it there, we can reach the ground floor and slip out the side entrance. It might not be too late. As we turned to leave the office, a deafening crash echoed from the corridor behind us. My stomach twisted, and I felt my heart race as we rushed to the door. Go! Now! I yelled as I pushed ahead, shoving Ryan and Sarah along. The chaos behind us exploded into action, and the weight of impending danger loomed with every hurried step we took. We sprinted towards the stairwell at the back, adrenaline propelling us forward. But just as we reached the door to the staircase, a figure lunged into view, blocking our exit. It was the shadowy figure from before, eyes glinting with malicious intent, steadying himself like a hunter ready to pounce. Thought you could simply walk away? He hissed, an unsettling smile curving his lips as he took a step closer. Panic surged through me, drowning my thoughts. We have to turn back, I shouted, frantically glancing around as I searched for another exit. But the hallway stretched endlessly in both directions. We were trapped. Not so fast, my little friends, the figure taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. You're a long way from home. It's time to face the music. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, the sound drowning out my thoughts. In a flash, I turned toward Ryan and Sarah, catching their wide eyes reflecting the same hurricane of emotions that churned within me. What if this was it? What if Clara's sacrifice wasn't just for our escape but for us to finally understand the true depths of what we were up against? In that moment, a flicker of unexpected warmth began to bloom inside me, a flicker ignited by the feeling that even in the face of formidable darkness, we could still hope. But could that hope sustain us now? Before I could act on that thought, the figure lunged towards us, and instinct kicked in. I grabbed Sarah's arm, yanking her as I pushed Ryan behind me, feeling the air shift as the tension crackled anew. But the doors to the hallway burst open suddenly, and a group of people poured in, their faces contorted in determination, brandishing what looked like security badges. My heart raced as relief washed over me, but was it truly a rescue or yet another layer of deception in this treacherous game? In the chaos, as multiple voices spoke over one another, two words rang clear in my mind: Clara's gone. My heart dropped, and as her absence resonated like a guttural cry within me, the enormity of our choices pressed down harder than ever. Each breath became more difficult to take, and the uncertainty of our allegiance left me trembling. In a world spun on lies and manipulations, where did hope end, and inevitable doom begin? We were standing on a precipice, teetering dangerously close to a truth we could not yet comprehend, a dark shadow looming just out of reach. And as the words painted our dire reality, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the brink of uncovering something even more unimaginable than Clara's sacrifice. The security personnel moved in a tight formation, their faces obscured by the harsh fluorescent lights above, but one figure stepped forward, towering over me as he shouted orders, his voice echoing with authority. "Step back. We have this under control." Ryan's grip tightened on my arm, his fear palpable, and I shot him a frantic look, trying to convey my uncertainty. What if these were the very agents responsible for Clara's fate? Would they protect us or lead us further into peril? "Please, we need to get out of here," I implored, my voice cracking amidst the rising tension. But just as the situation seemed to simmer down into chaos, a thrill of suspicion crackled in the air. The figure from the shadows broke free, darting forward with alarming speed. "Watch out!" I yelled, pushing Sarah aside as the assailant surged toward the security team. A scuffle ensued, bodies colliding in a whirlwind of shouts and disarray. My heart raced not just with fear but with confusion. Who could be trusted here? The urgency to protect my friend sparked something deep within me. Instinct coiled my muscles, ready to respond. While the fight unfolded around us, I spotted an open door off to the side. It beckoned like a lighthouse in a storm, the chance for escape illuminating in the chaos. "This way," I shouted, grabbing Sarah's hand and pulling her towards the exit. Ryan hesitated. "We can't leave them, we can't help them," I countered vehemently. "We have to go now." Desperation flared in my chest. What if lingering would seal our fate? Clara's sacrifice loomed over us all, the fabric of trust fraying in the harrowing fog of uncertainty that we slipped through the door and into a narrow storage room. The walls were stacked with old furniture and dusty crates, heavy with the scent of neglect. A locked window glimmered with a desperate hope, begging for us to find a way through. As I fumbled for a key or an opening, I heard the muffled sounds of the brawl echoing from the corridor, a haunting reminder of our precarious situation. "Is there another exit?" Sarah asked, panic lacing her voice. I spotted a narrow staircase leading further down, its fate hidden in darkness. "We have to go down," I urged, nudging Ryan toward the stairs. The struggle above us morphed into the familiar clamor of despair mixed with chaos, lighting a fire in my chest. Each step down felt like an unwilling descent into the unknown, weighed down by the feeling we were sliding further from any potential safety. As we descended, the air grew colder, and whispers wafted up the steps, laced with the undercurrent of dread. "They know we're down here," Ryan murmured, glancing back, apprehension tightening his features. Just as we reached the bottom, I spotted a dim light flickering at the far end of the hallway. My heart surged with a flicker of hope. "Over there." I pointed, but Sarah's expression betrayed her uncertainty. "What if it's a trap?" "We have to try," I insisted, feeling the same weight in my chest that Clara's words had etched into me, a relentless push toward action, despite fear wrapping its tendrils around my heart. As we moved forward, we stumbled into another room, this one filled with old office desks and files strewn across the floor. But it was too quiet, eerily so. My senses heightened as I scanned our surroundings. In the corner, a stack of unopened letters caught my eye, marked with the company's seal. "What's this?" Ryan asked, kneeling beside me and brushing off dust. My heart raced as I lifted one envelope, the edges crisp, feeling like an artifact from a past we were trying to escape. And yet, a sinking feeling gripped my insides as I read the name: Executive Strategy Meeting, Confidential. It tugged at the corners of my memory, the names inside leaping out like ghosts from a haunted past. I flipped the envelope, and a chill slithered down my spine. It wasn't just any meeting. It was the day Clara had been called away, what are these doing here? I murmured, my fingers trembling. It's been days since the realization consumed me, each name I recognized pulsing with an urgency I never imagined. Wait. Sarah said suddenly, her eyes widening. Look at this. She hesitated, then pulled another envelope from the pile, brushing against the labels. It lists the personnel authorized to attend. That's it. Ryan interjected, his expression a whirl of realization and anxiety. If we can expose this, we could expose what? Sarah shot back, her voice fraying under the weight of our shared fears. We could just be putting ourselves in more danger. I scowled at the letters, torn between the fragile thread of hope and the imminent darkness gnawing at my resolve. If we don't act now, we may never get this chance again, I said firmly. We owe it to Clara. The shadows behind us flickered with movement, and without hesitation, we spun around. The door jerked open abruptly, revealing the chaotic aftermath of the fight. I barely had time to register the figure silhouetted against the hallway light before a familiar voice cut through the tension. Don't move. The voice was piercing, and I recognized it too late. The final illusion shattered as the light fell on the figure standing before us, eyes locked on mine with a mixture of desperation and resolve. It was her. Clara. But something was different. She became the face of every choice I had made, the dilemma of trust that both anchored me and dragged me deeper into darkness. Clara? I breathed, my heart accelerating as shock and disbelief surged through me, twisting my stomach in knots. But you enough. She shouted, a strange intensity emanating from her, driven by the urgency of the moment. We have no time. You have to listen to me. My mind reeled, caught between disbelief and relief. In the blink of an eye, everything spiraled, new dangers unveiled their faces, and Clara stood before us looking more like an enigma than ever. What was it I truly saw in her eyes? Trust? Or something else entirely, deception hidden beneath layers of loyalty? The ground felt unsteady beneath me, and I had to brace myself for the storm that lay ahead, a tempest brewing from the unimaginable choices we had yet to make. Clara stepped forward, her expression a storm of urgency paired with something darker that I couldn't quite decipher. In that moment, the gravity of her presence slammed against my chest, and my mind raced. If this was the real Clara, how had she been caught up in something so sinister? We need to get out of here, she insisted, urgency throbbing in her voice. There's no telling how long we have. Why did you leave? I couldn't help but ask, an ancient flame of betrayal sparking in my heart. Why did you leave us? Leaving wasn't my choice, she bit back, eyes flickering between desperation and sorrow. I was taken. I didn't have a way to come back. Ryan's brow furrowed as he joined the conversation. Taken? By who? By them, she indicated toward the doorway, where the muffled sounds of the earlier fight still lingered, blending into a chilling backdrop. And they'll be back any minute. That I stepped back, the weight of the world pressing down on me. I'd spent the days since Clara's disappearance wrestling with nightmares, battling shadows of guilt, while now I was faced with the real thing, alive yet somehow not omnipotent. I wanted to trust her, to reclaim the lost time, but my resolve began to crack under the barrage of questions. But how? How are you here? There's no time. She raised her voice, her tension palpable. Listen to me. You need to trust me now more than ever, please. Trust? Sarah interjected, her voice shaking slightly. You expect us to trust you after all this? After everything that's happened? Before Clara could respond, the thuds of booted feet echoed down the corridor outside, and my heart raced with adrenaline. The urgency of our situation pressed upon us, stealing the air from my lungs. What do we do? I whispered, the panic rising like bile. This way. Clara led us down a side corridor, the familiar darkness swallowing us whole. She glanced over her shoulder, eyes wide with fear and something else, something unspoken. I can get you out. Just follow me. We stumbled along, the scent of damp concrete mingling with the fading noise of the world outside. Small drops of hope began to glitter amid our fear, each step resonating with the pulse of potential freedom, yet doubt clung to my every thought like a persistent shadow. Are you sure they won't find us? Ryan's voice trembled, riddled with a sense of foreboding. Not if we move quickly, Clara replied, her tone steely yet strained, punctuating her words with whispered urgency. But it's dangerous, stay close. Just as we turned a corner, Clara slowed, her hand raised as she motioned for us to halt. Wait. She scanned the area, tension radiating from her. I need to check if it's clear, and just like that, I was struck by how much had changed. Here was Clara, the steadfast ally I had relied on in my darkest hours, the girl who once laughed with us over coffee, now a stranger entwined in the very fabric of this looming peril. Are you sure we should be following her? Sarah whispered, casting a worried glance at me. We were all caught in a delicate tightrope, balancing between trust and fear. Point 2 Don't know, I admitted, the uncertainty gnawing at my resolve. But somewhere within me, that flicker of hope began to grow stronger. Clara had been a fighter all along. I had seen her strength even when the darkness threatened to consume us. Before I could voice another thought, a loud crash echoed behind us, reverberating through the corridor like the clang of a warning bell. Frozen, I turned, the instinct to flee gripping my heart so tightly it was almost unbearable. What was that? I gasped, my eyes wide with terror. Get ready, Clara hissed, her voice low but fierce. We don't have much time, filling my lungs with air. I locked my gaze on Clara and nodded, but I could feel the promise of betrayal creeping back into my psyche. The hope I had held on to showed cracks as trust wavered, and I felt my heart racing not just in fear but in a desperate wish to ward off the darkness threatening to overtake us again. As Clara pressed forward, another sound sliced through the tension, the whirring of machinery and the echo of voices. Approaching from around the corner. My breath caught this time, the threat loomed closer than ever. Move! Clara urged, and we sprinted into the next room, heartbeats pounding against our ribs like relentless war drums. We ducked behind a dilapidated desk, the reality of our situation settling over us like an oppressive fog. My mind spun, musing over the fragile bond of trust we now shared. Was it enough to shield us from the encroaching shadows of our past? And just as I felt our hopes slipping away, a loud crash erupted from the other room, drowning the world in chaos. The door we had entered through flung open, and a dark silhouette stepped in. The realization struck me hard. Everything had led to this moment, each inconceivable choice spiraling into another. I squinted into the waning light, a dawning horror settling deep within me. Trust had morphed into a treacherous game, and as Clara's eyes met mine, filled with a potent mix of terror and something far more profound, I knew we were on the cusp of unearthing truths that could either save us or condemn us all. The echo of the crashing door reverberated through the cramped space, and the silhouette edged closer, its form outlined against the dim light. Each step felt like the slow winding of a clock, time stretching unbearably as dread seeped into my bones. The figure paused, scanning the room with an intensity that sent my heart pounding in my ears. Clara! Ryan exclaimed, his voice barely a whisper. What do we do? Stay quiet, she replied, her voice a tense thread woven with determination and fear. And don't move. As the silhouette drew nearer, a wild array of emotions twisted inside me. I wanted to believe in Clara, staked everything on her being the ally I needed, but her past choices felt like creeping tendrils threatening to ensnare my faith. I could no longer ignore the fact that the person we once cherished had stepped into a realm of shadows. The figure was at the desk now, its breath heavy and audible in the still air. Clara, it rasped, the sound ricocheting off the walls, forcing its way deep into my consciousness. You can't run forever. My stomach dropped. Recognizing that voice rang like a death knell, and chills flooded my body. It was Nolan, the one I had trusted, the one who had stood by Clara long before all this madness began. Why are you doing this? You don't have to. Clara's voice faltered, a mix of anger and pleading suffusing her words. Nolan chuckled, but there was an edge of bitterness to it that tasted like metal. I'm doing what needs to be done. You've gone too far, Clara. You thought you could get out, thought that this would just disappear? No one walks away from this. His words struck a raw nerve. Had Clara always been pawns in a larger game? How many choices had she made that now captured us all in this relentless storm? The fear of hopelessness flooded through me once more, brimming with the realization that we were on the precipice of something far worse than mere capture. The abruptness of a heavy footstep jolted me from my spiraling thoughts. Just beyond the desk, the police radio crackled to life, a white-knuckled reminder of an encroaching authority that painted our escape with shadows. "We can't stay here," I whispered, my head spinning with conflict. "Whatever game he's playing, we need to move." Clara held her stare on Nolan, the silent exchange rippling between them like old wounds brought back to life. "We had plans, you know," she whispered, her voice a mere breath. "Things could have been different." Nolan shrugged, the contours of his face hardening. "You made your choices, Clara. You were supposed to help the transition, but you played the hero instead." The tension in the small room grew unbearable as Ryan shifted uncomfortably beside me. "What does that even mean?" he asked, breaking the ice that had frozen our hearts into silence. That a glimmer of understanding flickered in Clara's gaze before it dissolved into despair. "They plan to expose everything, the corruption. There's more going on than you can imagine, and I got pulled in. I thought I could fight it." Nolan picked up a small object from the desk, the glint of metal catching the light and reflecting it back like a taunt. "You thought you could change the game. But the rules are set, Clara. The moment you went off script." Clara's eyes darted between Nolan and the door, a flurry of emotions wrestling for dominance. "That's not true. I tried to protect you. We could still end this together." A shift occurred, a cracking in the tension so thick it felt almost tangible. It was as if a storm was brewing inside the very walls, and with it came the weight of betrayal thickening the air. I leaned closer to Ryan, my heart thundering. If he realizes we're here no sooner had I thought it than Nolan turned sharply, his gaze locking on us like lost prey. "What's this?" His voice was cold, laced with a newfound excitement. "Little friends of yours?" How delightful. Without a moment to breathe, Clara surged forward. "Run!" she yelled, and the cry ripped through the air like a siren's wail. The moment unraveled in chaos, everything splintered as we charged toward the door in a frenetic blur of racing hearts and desperate shouts. Behind us, Nolan's laughter echoed, harsh and mocking. "You can't run from your past, Clara. It'll find you." We stumbled through the doorway just as his voice shattered the last remnants of hope, and clarity abruptly honed itself amidst the panic. As we careened down the next corridor, Clara panted alongside me, her breath ragged, a wild glimmer of fury and desperation mixing in her gaze. "What have you gotten us into?" I gasped, raw anxiety tearing through my words as heavy footsteps pursued us. "I didn't have a choice, but you all can't get caught in this. There are truths too big to unravel right now." She thrust her hand against the wall, veering us left, deeper into the maze of what felt like an infinite spiral of claustrophobia. Each pounding heartbeat began counting the seconds until we would emerge. But then came an unsettling realization, one that constricted around my chest. Could I still trust her? Could we save her when it felt like the walls were closing in, riddled with the weight of intertwined loyalties and dark secrets? Suddenly, a distant blaring alarm echoed through the hallways, a sinister bell tolling against our freedom, and with it, the knowledge that time was running thin. Uncertainty mounted like a tidal wave. Our fight for survival was beginning to morph into a search for truth, one I wasn't sure would bind us or break us. And then, as fate would have it, something unexpected happened. A figure stepped into our path, a familiar face, eyes wide with either surprise or intention. "Clara!" the stranger called out, and in that instant, my heart dropped, recognizing the person standing before us. We had thought they were gone, lost somewhere in the very abyss that had swallowed us whole. But it wasn't a person arriving to rescue us, it was a ghost we had never anticipated re-emerging. And as Clara's jaw dropped in disbelief, I knew the very foundations of our quest would shatter. All that lay ahead was an unfathomable revelation that could unravel our fragile alliance entirely. The tense air throbbed around us as Clara's eyes widened, disbelief etching deeper lines across her face. In the dim light, the familiar figure stepped forward, their features backlit like a ghost emerging from the fog of memory. My heart raced, torn between relief and dread. We had thought we were all alone in this darkness, but now we were face to face with a reality that would tip our world once again. "Lucas?" Clara stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. The shock of seeing him here, in this mess, shattered what little clarity I had left. Lucas had been the bright star in Clara's life, a friend whose laughter had once filled our quiet moments with light. But his absence since the escalation of events had left a gaping hole, one that had deepened our isolation. "Clara, we don't have time," he urged, urgency propelling him forward as he glanced back, unnerved. "They're coming, what are you doing here?" Clara's voice cracked, a tinge of hope threading through the tremor. "I thought I was dead?" He shot back, a flicker of anger igniting beneath his calm words. "It's complicated. I didn't want you to get mixed up in this, but I couldn't just leave you in the dark." Lucas turned to Ryan and me, assessing us with a protective glaze. "We need to move." Now that a rush of conflicting emotions surged through me, anger at Lucas for vanishing just when we needed him, gratitude for his unexpected arrival, and fear of how his presence might complicate our already precarious situation. We were seconds away from being caught, and yet here he stood, possibly our salvation or our doom. Clara took a step forward, her eyes fixed on Lucas as if he were an anchor in a storm. "What do you know?" It was a demand as much as a plea, a desperate yearning to piece together the shattered fragments of our reality. Lucas hesitated, weighing the implications of his words. "Everything. I found out why Nolan's here, and it's worse than we ever imagined. He's been playing us all against each other, and there's a lot more at stake than our lives." I felt the world tilt as his revelation sank in. The very framework that we believed was sturdy crumbled like sand through our fingers. "What do you mean?" I pressed, trying to mask the growing dread that gnawed at my insides. "It's a corporate power play," Lucas continued, urgency coursing through his every syllable. "The things Clara wanted to expose, the truths, those aren't just about our past. They're about the future of everything we believed in. They're planning to wipe things clean, and Clara's the key." "What?" My voice was barely a whisper, heavy with disbelief. "How can you know this?" Lucas met my gaze with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "Because I've seen the files, the plans. There are people inside who will do anything to keep their secrets buried, including sacrificing anyone who threatens to reveal them." Behind us, the sound of echoing footsteps drew closer, a relentless reminder that we were not safe here. Clara's expression twisted into something fierce, igniting the determination I'd seen when we first fled from Nolan. "Then we need to fight back. We can't let them win." But Lucas looked troubled, burdened. "Clara, we're outnumbered. We need to align ourselves with others, gather more support. We can't face this alone." As Clara's resolve wavered, I felt the gust of fear return. What did he mean by others? Who could we trust? The paranoia hammered at the edges of my weary heart. Before we could grasp our next move, the corridor vibrated with chaos, the blaring alarm now a cacophony that drowned out our thoughts. A crisis was brewing, and in its swell, I caught sight of the flickering lights above us, warning of impending danger. "Lucas, has anyone else?" I began, but his face went pale and he cut me off. "No. We need to go now, or none of this matters." He sprang into action, pulling Clara with him. "Follow my lead." Desperation propelled our feet, racing deeper into the labyrinth of shadows where the only light came in fleeting bursts from the flickering overhead fixtures. Each turn could lead us toward freedom or into the grasp of our pursuers, but just as I pushed myself forward, the sudden realization surged like a lightning bolt across my consciousness. Lucas was too calm. Unnervingly so. Why had he returned now? What if there was more to his presence than he let on? My heart beat louder, drowning out the rhythm of our escape. The corridor forked ahead, and without time to choose, I followed them into the right passage. But doubt gnawed at my insides, the nagging question infecting every decision. Would Clara ever forgive me if I was right? Would any of us make it out alive to see the truth unveiled? As we barreled down the narrow expanse, my heart throbbing with anxiety and unyielding hope, a shocking revelation struck me as we rounded a corner. A familiar figure loomed in the distance, the very person Clara had claimed to trust above all. It was Nolan, smirking in the darkness, eyes glinting with triumph. Behind him, shadows shifted, a sinister wave of his own reinforcements blocking our escape. "Welcome back," he sneered, arms crossed, a predator savoring the moment before the kill. And as the implications sunk into the atmosphere, I realized we were trapped not just by the physical threats around us, but by the very scabs of betrayal that had stitched themselves deep into our hearts. The air was stagnant, weighted with betrayal as I faced the figure that had once embodied trust. Nolan's laugh echoed like daggers in the quiet, a cacophony that shattered the fragile resolve we had fought to maintain. Did you really think you could escape this? This is about more than all of you, it's about power. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, yet beneath the rising tide of fear simmered a flicker of defiance. You don't own us, I shouted, my voice trembling with an unease that I struggled to mask. We won't let you take what's left of us. Nolan's expression shifted, morphing into a mask of annoyance. Brave words, he taunted, stepping closer, but I could sense a tremor of uncertainty beneath his bravado. Behind him, shadows shifted, indicating a presence that felt more threatening than the darkness that cloaked us. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, leading us closer to an unavoidable collision with our ghosts, Clara. I turned, fighting against the rising tide of despair rushing toward me. She stood frozen, her eyes darting between Ryan, Lucas, and Meher, face a mix of fear and fury. Stay strong, I called, urging her to regroup amid the chaos encroaching on our fragile moment of clarity. This can't be the end. A realization ignited in my chest. Clara was our key. Her unyielding spirit held a power we had yet to uncover. They think they can divide us, I continued, finding solidarity in the warmth of Sarah and Ryan's hands clutching mine, a living tether amidst the storm. But we're stronger together. We can't let them win. I could see the gears shifting in Clara's mind as the depths of her determination flared. You're right, she finally replied, a new resolve igniting in her eyes. We expose them. We take the power back. Before the shadows could close in, she turned to Nolan. Whatever you think you hold over us, we will not be mere pawns in your game any longer. Nolan scoffed. You think you can turn the tide? You're walking straight into a pit of vipers. You don't understand, everyone is expendable. You have no allies. But within the burning rhythm of our hearts, I felt a shift. No, I replied, voice steady now with conviction. They may have strung us along, but we will find our way through this. A burst of energy rushed against the encroaching darkness, and all at once, the sound of footsteps echoed from deeper in the hallway. Our escape route was rapidly closing. Run! Clara yelled, energy zipping through her as we broke free from the looming shadows and bolted past Nolan. As we dashed toward the distant light at the end of the corridor, I could hear them behind us, the echoes of dissent mingled with urgency, the sounds blending into a crescendo that demanded we escape before we became ensnared in their web of power. Lucas, how do we get out? I gasped as we flew through the pulsating tension surrounding us. Downstairs. We need to reach the lobby, he urged, pointing toward a side exit. It's our best chance. I felt fear coiling at my insides, knowing Nolan was right behind us, but the adrenaline fueled my determination. I caught glimpses of my friends beside me, each face a mirror of resolve battling the storm of fear, and it filled my spirit with strength. Yet the walls felt like they were closing in as we raced down the stairs. Each step reverberated through my body, echoes of missed opportunities mingling with the distant laughter of betrayal that clung to my thoughts like a ghost. But just as we reached the bottom, the world shifted again. A sudden flash of lights burst above us, illuminating the dark stairwell as a group of security personnel cornered us with hardened expressions, badges glinting under the harsh lights. Stop right there, one of them commanded, moving with a practiced assertiveness. Wait, Clara shouted, her voice laced with urgency. We're not the enemy. But you're clearly with Nolan, another officer replied, narrowing his eyes. You need to come with us. Enough. Lucas stepped forward, rallying us as if he were a captain pressing through forces of fate. We're not part of this fraudulent game anymore. We're here to expose what has happened, not be blindsided by another layer of deceit. The officer hesitated, confusion mingling with conviction as they weighed their options. Clara took a step towards them, her gaze penetrating. We hold the truth, give us a chance to unravel this. We can help you understand where the lies have been planted. But before anyone could react, the distant sound of clashing footsteps echoed downward, growing ever closer. A dark shadow loomed behind the officers, the unmistakable presence of Nolan and his men. The alarm rang out louder than before, and my heart pounded with the weight of everything we had fought for crashing down in this critical moment. I held my breath, watching as the officers squared themselves, glancing back at us in confusion. We were out of to me a moment stretched in tension as decisions hung in a precarious balance. Go. I shouted suddenly, lunging forward and disrupting the energy in the air. Trust us. You know what's at stake. Before anyone could move, Clara reclaimed her voice, the spark in her eyes igniting. We can't let them win. You must make a choice. The officers looked between us, and in that split instant, their hesitation betrayed a glimmer of doubt about where their loyalties lay. Just before our world exploded into chaos once again, I saw a flicker of resolve from an officer who stepped forward, eyes firm and defiant. Well, give you a head start, he shouted, casting a glance toward his comrades. Go. Don't look back. And with that, we surged forward, igniting in a bright burst of desperate hope as we raced past them, adrenaline fueling our steps as we burst through the lobby doors. The blinding light of the outside world enveloped us like a blanket as we stumbled onto the street, gasping for the fresh air of freedom. But our fight was far from over. I felt fire igniting in my chest, spreading with each beat as we pushed forward, determined to reveal the truth lurking beneath the shadows. Clara, Ryan, Lucas, and I locked hands, a unit anchored in the chaos of heartbreak and hope, ready to expose the darkness that had held us captive for too long. In that moment, a profound realization washed over me. In this chaotic dance of betrayal and resilience, we could choose to stand firm, refusing to let fear dictate our fate. The courage we carried in our hearts was the seed of our freedom, and as the sun blazed overhead, casting light upon the tattered memories we'd turned into courage, we faced our journey ahead, embracing the light with renewed purpose. Together, we'd break through the chains of deceit, ready to patch together the pieces of a broken world, with newfound strength coursing through us. I turned to my friends, whispering softly as we braved the next steps forward together. No matter what happens, we will rise again.